Drew Brees and Emmanuel Sanders in video service, they are already working out together. And they look good, man. And look, we saw videos of Tom Brady working with his receivers, Russell Wilson throwing with DK Metcalf. Well, guess what? We talked about the top 5 quarterbacks in the league. Think all 3 of those guys are probably in there. Well, Drew Brees was not going to be left behind. And once again, I would like to revisit something that we talked about earlier, which is the potential for Emmanuel Sanders, because he could blow the roof off this Saints offense. And this goes back to what I said when he was signed, right? This Saints offense is a whole is greater than the sum of its parts type of deal. And what I mean by that, yeah, the parts are pretty impressive on their own, but when you combine them, when you have a quarterback like Drew Brees that can elevate the play of everyone around him, well, all of a sudden, the Emmanuel Sanders signing becomes much more effective in a black and gold uniform than his talent level would maybe lead you to believe, or than where he would be elsewhere. And I mentioned the elevating effect that a quarterback can have on everybody around him. I mean, just look at 2 very baseline examples, right? When you talk about offensive line, what is an offensive line's best friend? It's a quarterback that understands protections, that checks you into the right plays, that makes the right calls so you know who your responsibilities are on protections. And mainly, it's a quarterback who gets rid of the ball, so even if you get beat, you don't get a sack on that tally. Drew Brees has done that for a year. He elevates his teammates' level of play in that regard. And then you look at the wide receivers or the running backs or the Jared Cook, like anybody who's catching a ball on that team. You know that if you do your job and you run every route as hard as you can, as consistently as you can, he's not going to get overly locked in on one guy. He's going to spread the ball around. You will get your opportunity for numbers. You will get your opportunity for success. And when it gets there, the ball is going to be placed with pinpoint accuracy. And so all of a sudden now, you have a Saints team with Emmanuel Sanders factored in, where who do you stop? You overcommit to Mike Thomas? Well, then you got Sanders. You got a healthy Kamara. You got Jared Cook coming after you. We'll see what Trotman and stuff can do, some of the other young guys that you added. But they are putting you, or they are beginning to, put you in an impossible decision-making point where you have to decide who are you going to commit your defensive resources to stopping, and almost no matter who you answer, you will be wrong. And that is the goal of any type of roster building, and I think Sanders has done that, so I love seeing Brees and Sanders work together. The final piece of Saints news that I wanted to get to here in segment 1 has to do with Jadeveon Clowney. Word on the street is he may be interested in joining the Cowboys or the Saints. And for me, this is just like could the rich get even richer when you're talking about the New Orleans Saints roster right now? And look, if we're talking about Clowney, you may be like, well, why is he still available? Isn't that a bit of a red flag? I don't actually think it is. He didn't get the contract he wanted. And so now he is kind of taking back the decision-making power, right? And in Jadeveon Clowney, you're talking about a guy who was all-pro in 2016. In 2017 and 18, he had 18 and a half sacks with 42 quarterback hits combined. And then last year he fell off a bit. Got hurt, played 11 games. He had around 4 sacks. He still thought, though, due to his body of work at 27 years old, at a pass rushing position where the money is, he thought he was going to get paid this offseason. And so he wanted that huge deal, and he held out for it, but he didn't get it. And guess what? Sometimes the market decides that you're not worth it. But while Jadeveon Clowney may not be worth a massive long-term deal, there are a ton of teams that would take him on a decent 1-year deal, which is reportedly what he's looking for. However, when all of a sudden the market decides that they want you that badly, then the balance of power shifts, and instead of waiting on people, Jadeveon Clowney, he now gets to pick and choose. And word on the street is that it's the Cowboys and the Saints. And think about that, dude. Think about that pass rush. You're going to put Jadeveon Clowney opposite of Cam Jordan. You're going to work Marcus Davenport into the mix. Maybe you have a pass rush package with all 3 of them. Maybe they rotate to keep each other fresh. I mean, Jordan won't rotate. He plays nearly 100% of the snaps all the time. That's why he made the all-decade team. He's unbelievable. But how about Trey Hendrickson? He gets lost in the mix. He's an effective pass rusher and has only improved in all of his time in the NFL. So if you suddenly had Jordan, Clowney, Davenport, and yes, I'll even throw Hendrickson in there, that would be one of the premier pass rushes of the NFL. And the same way the Emmanuel Sanders signing works better in the context of the Saints roster, a Clowney signing would as well because of Cam Jordan. Because like Mike Thomas, Cam Jordan is a player that demands and commands an allocation of resources to stop him. You have to focus on him. You have to double him. You have to chip him with your tight ends, with your running backs. Well, if you're doing that to Cam, you can't do that to Clowney. So all of a sudden, you guarantee that Jadeveon Clowney gets to go one-on-one. And in my opinion, at 27 years old, entering his physical prime, that to me feels like a winning formula. So we'll be watching this situation with very close interest over the next few weeks. Here's to hoping that Clowney chooses to side with the black and gold as opposed to Dallas. Because, I mean, is Dallas really a Super Bowl contender? Come on now, right?